Welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name is Azallea, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys an update to my Melodious deck. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. First off, we're playing two copies of the most important card in the deck, Aria the Melodious Diva. She has the effect where when she's special summoned, she protects all of her Melodious monsters from targeting effects and from battle destruction. So definitely must have at least two. I don't play three because I don't want to draw into her. I prefer to keep her inside of the deck because when she's in your hand, the only way to get rid of her is basically to normal summon her, and there are better options to normal summon in this deck. And I had too many going on, so I decided to cut down on Aria, and it's been working out pretty well. Okay, next off, we were running two copies of Cannon, the Melodious Diva. Now, Cannon, she has the effect where if you control a Melodious monster, you can special summon her straight from the hand. Because she's level 4 and she's a light, she actually makes XYZ plays for us, and pretty good ones as well. More exclusive ones that are locked into attributes like lights. Okay, and then Cannon also has an effect, the secondary effect, which is actually really important. She can target a Melodious monster that we control and change its battle position. So if you just have a Cannon and Ties of the Brethren, you can normal summon the Cannon, switch her defense position before using Ties of the Brethren, and then you summon Aria and Tam Tam or Soprano or whatever you need. And this is pretty important because by putting her into defense mode, you're preventing yourself from taking further damage on your opponent's turn when they summon bigger monsters than yours. And because Ties of Brethren has a steep cost of 2,000 life points, you really kind of have to be careful of how much you have. Okay, with that being said, let's move on. We have one copy of Tam Tam, the Melodious Diva. Now, Tam Tam is absolutely mandatory now because Ties of the Brethren is out. So her effect is, when she's special summoned while you control another Melodious monster, you get to add a polymerization from your graveyard or your deck to your hand. So she can recycle and search polymerization, which is really good for us to just plus and gain advantage on our first turn when we're setting up. Okay, so next off, for our last Ties of the Brethren target in the archetype, we have Soprano, the Melodious Songstress. So Soprano has the effect that you can conduct a fusion summon when she's on the field with other Melodious monsters that you control to bring out, Schuberta, Bloom Diva, or if you're playing her, Bloom Prima. And she also has the effect of when you special summon her, she gets to add one Melodious monster from your graveyard to your hand. She's one of the few ways that we can gain advantage, but she is definitely very important and definitely a must-have at 3. Okay. So to wrap up the Melodious monster lineup, we run 3 copies of Sonata, the Melodious Diva. Now, while she is a level 3, she does have the ability, similar to Cannon, to swarm the field. When you control another Melodious monster, you can special summon her from the hand. And when she's special summoned, all fairy-type monsters on the field gain 500 attack and defense. So she is very good for boosting the attack of all of our monsters here, so that they get big enough to stand on their own or to swing over other monsters. And because of her effect not being restricted like Cannon's to once per turn, you can continuously special summon her and kind of loop her with Soprano. So that is pretty good. Okay, so starting off the non-archetype support, we're playing 2 copies of Honest. Honest is really important in this deck because he is a light level 4 fairy type monster, and because of that he synergizes with Ties of the Brethren. So we can either summon him with Ties of the Brethren using some of the above monsters, or we could actually use him with Ties of the Brethren to summon out 2 of the monsters above, and then return Honest to the hand so that he doesn't get destroyed by battle or by card effects on the next turn. So definitely run 2 copies of him. You need him, and he's very, very accessible as well. So you'll be seeing him more often than you used to. Okay, so next off, we were running 2 copies of Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk just allows us to get rid of dead spells in our hand mid to late game, and he also helps us summon any of the above monsters save for Sonata, because she's level 3 from our deck. So he is just really good for just making sure that our hand is almost never dead. He fixes dead hands, and he gets rid of dead spells as well. And to wrap up the monster lineup entirely, we run 2 copies of Maxi because everybody special summons now. It doesn't matter what they're playing, they're basically special summoning, unless it's like Yosenju or something, I guess. Anyway, that wraps up the entire monster lineup. Next off, going to go into the spell cards. So for these spell cards, we are running 3 copies of First Movement Solo. First Movement Solo has the effect where if we control no monsters, we can special summon 1 Melodious monster that's level 4 or lower straight from our deck to the field. This means that we can bring Aria straight from the deck or Soprano straight from the deck if we, depending on the situation, what other cards we have in our hand. So this card is definitely really useful for setting up. And the other powerful card that we use to set up is the new card, Ties of the Brethren. Now my copies might look a little different to you guys. It's because I'm using a proxy. I'm still trying to get my 3rd actual copy of Ties of the Brethren. It's in my closet somewhere behind me. Okay, anyway, Ties of the Brethren, if you're not familiar with it, has this effect. You can pay 2,000 life points, then target 1 level 4 or lower monster that you control. Special summon from your deck 2 monsters with the same type, attribute, and level as the monster, but with different names from each other and the targeted monster. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon any more monsters, and you cannot conduct your battle phase during the turn you activate this card. So this is a really steep cost of 2,000 life points. However, it brings out 2 more Melodious monsters from your deck onto the field, helps you swarm, and Aria provides protection. And that is the most important part. Since Aria provides protection, we're more likely than not going to see the rest of our monsters survive for the turn. And after our opponent's turn, when it comes back to ours, if you've resolved it and you managed to summon an Aria and a Tam Tam off of something like a Soprano, that's the ideal field, then you would have been able to get a search with Tam Tam for the polymerization, which means you set up for an Aria and Bloom Diva on your turn. So on your coming turn, you're going to have an Aria, Soprano, and Tam Tam on the field with the polymerization in hand and hopefully another Melodious monster. This way you can use Soprano to fuse with Tam Tam for the Shiberta, and then you can use polymerization with the Shiberta and whatever Melodious monsters in your hand for the Bloom Diva. So immediate Aria and Bloom Diva access, real easy, and all you really needed was a Soprano, a Ties of the Brethren, and another Melodious monster in your hand. So boy, that was a mouthful, but that is basically our ideal field. Okay, so moving on for the rest of the cards, we play 2 copies of Magic Planter. Magic Planter is amazing for sending all of our continuous traps to the grave for some extra draws. And sometimes if you opened up with a bunch of continuous traps and you draw Magic Planter later in the game, you get the snowball advantage, and more likely than not, you're going to win at that point. Okay, so then we play 1 copy of Polymerization for our Tam Tam target to search and recover. We play 1 copy of Instant Fusion to summon the Norden from our extra deck and to go into rank 4 plays. Run 1 copy of Soul Charge. Now I know we're running Instant Fusions, we're running Ties of Brethren, now we're running Soul Charge. Life points are really important when you're playing this deck. You have to keep track of your life points. But I do have the Soul Charge in here with the Instant Fusion because they really do help you set up with your first turn plays. This deck build that I have right here is going to be a very, I guess, stun oriented, where you kind of want to prevent your opponent from doing things, and you kind of want to shut them down as soon as possible. Okay, so next off we run 1 copy of Raigeki, because sometimes when big monsters are on the field, we can't really get rid of them without dropping an Honest and stuff, and since we don't always have access to him, we have to have ways to remove problem monsters from the field, just so our smaller monsters can start dealing damage ourselves. Okay, we run 1 copy of Upstart Goblin to wrap up the spell lineup just for that 39 card deck. We need all the consistency that we can get at this point. Okay, so moving on into the trap cards. We run 3 copies of Mistake. Mistake, my old friend. So Mistake prevents both players from adding cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them. This is usually not a problem for us because the only card that really searches is Tam Tam, and once we get the polymerization out of the deck, we just kind of recycle it from the graveyard with Tam Tam's effect, so we don't need to search beyond that. And it'll probably most likely to not hurt your opponent more than you. Okay, next off we run 2 copies of Powerful Rebirth, another continuous trap card, and it allows us to bring back our Melodious monsters from the graveyard. Very good card, and the most important thing about it is that when it leaves the field, when it's attached to a monster, that monster is not destroyed. So if you Powerful Rebirth something back and then you Magic Planter the Powerful Rebirth, you get to draw 2 cards and your monster stays on the field, so that's pretty good in my opinion. Alright, so for the next card, we are playing one copy of Vanity's Emptiness. This is just to lock out all of these special summons. Again, a lot of decks like to special summon, and against decks like Blue Eyes, Vanity's Emptiness is basically an auto-win because they don't have any monster they can normal summon that's big enough to really deal with any of your monsters. Okay, and then next off, we were playing one copy of Bottomless Trap Hole. Welcome back into the deck. I've been excluding it from a lot of recent profiles lately because it hasn't been really good up until now. I believe that it's decent right now because ABCs can't defuse on their turn, so if you were able to bottomless their monster, you're going to be looking at a pretty nice clear field for your next turn. Okay, and then with that in mind, we also run one copy of Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. This is just so that special summon monsters get their effects negated, basically, if the opponent tries to use the effect on the turn that it's summoned. And speaking of effect negation, we play one copy of Breakthrough Skill just to stop the more important monsters like ABC, Dragon Buster, and things like that from getting their effects off, to stop them from disrupting our field so we can go for next turn play. It also has a graveyard effect, so we can definitely use it on our turn to, let's say, bait out an ABC Dragon Buster to make them defuse, and so that we can wipe their field or something like that. And yeah, so, and to cap off the trap lineup, we play one copy of Solemn Warning, and that's really pretty much a staple card, I believe, to stop your opponent from summoning things. Okay, so that does it for the main deck. Next off, we're going to go into the side deck. So for the side deck, we are running two copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Now, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit's really good against decks like Mermails, against the ABC Field Spell. It's pretty good against Blue Eyes as well. When they try and use Azure Eyes, you can destroy the Azure Eyes before the effect to protect themselves. All the dragons that they control applies. Ghost Ogre is also really good against DDD and their contracts, their dark contracts that allow them to search or to fuse or whatever. So Ghost Ogre is just a really good overall side card in this format right now. Okay, next off, we play one copy of Barrier Statue of the Heavens. Now you're probably wondering why you're playing this. Well, look at its stats and attributes and everything. It's a light level 4 fairy type monster, which means we can summon it off of Ties of the Brethren. And this card, if you, let's say, control a Melodious monster and then you activate Ties of the Brethren, you can summon this from the deck along with an Honest, and then you return the Honest to your hand. Now you have this card that prevents your opponent from summoning anything except light monsters, and if they do manage to normal summon something to try and attack over you, you have the Honest to stop them in their track. Barrier Statue of the Heavens can actually just literally win you the game sometimes, especially against decks that aren't light. Okay, so next off, we were running two copies of Victoria, and Victoria is the same thing as Barrier Statue of the Heavens in that it has a light attribute, level 4 fairy type monster. Now, Victoria is a card that I would side against Blue Eyes. This card reads, once per turn, you can select one dragon type monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon it to your side of the field. Your opponent cannot select another face-up fairy type monster as an attack target. Now, if you have two of these on the field, you create a lock where your opponent cannot attack, but that is rarely ever going to happen. But what is important is that Victoria can steal your opponent's alternatives, White Spirit Dragons, you can steal their Crystal Wing if you manage to get over that, Harbinger, you can steal a lot of powerful dragons with this card, and then after you steal it, you can use Ties of the Brethren on it, and then bring out two more monsters onto your side of the field. So Victoria, in my opinion, is a very good card against Blue Eyes, especially in our deck, where we have a pretty good matchup overall against them because we can banish so many of their dragons, but if they do manage to get a dragon or two in the graveyard, we can just take it and get a free 3,000 attack Blue Eyes. That's never bad. And we can always crash it, their dragon into their other dragons and clear their field that way. Okay, so speaking of clearing fields, we also run 3 copies of Kumongous, the Sticky String Kaiju. Kumongous, very powerful, you know, it's a kaiju. You just tribute it over your opponent's monsters, any problem monsters, Crystal Wings, Dark Ladies if people are still playing Cosmos, Beatrice, ABC Dragon Busters, any boss monsters, any problem monsters, any floodgate monsters except Vandy's Fiend, I guess. You can just tribute over them and give them a kaiju, and you can always attack over it with Shiberta, Bloom Diva, anything really. Okay, so that does it for the monsters in the side deck. Next off, for the spell cards, we were running 3 copies of System Down. And I highly emphasize 3 copies if you're going into any local tournaments or anything like that. If you're going to your local store, if you're playing with friends that are that bought the ABC structure deck, the Kaiba structure deck, this ruins ABCs. Just System Down them. Even if they defuse with their Dragon Buster, they're going to get 3 monsters back up to their side of the field, and they're going to get immediately banished. So System Down just shuts down ABCs and is very good for cleaning up the field to swing for game. Okay, next off we run 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon just in case our opponent starts siding in some floodgates and stuff. You can kind of anticipate, you know, they'll probably side in anti-spells and stuff like that, so definitely good to have. Also good against ABC because it hits their field spell, so they can't search and they can't gain advantage off of it. And last but not least, 2 copies of Rivalry of the Warlords to cap off the side deck. Rivalry, I put it in here not because it's good against, like, let's say, against monarchs where it prevents them from summoning. This is more or less to protect yourself from getting kaiju'd and stuff, and it's a continuous trap, so it does have synergy with the magic planter that we run in the main deck. So there is that. That was it for the side deck. So next off we're going to go into the extra deck. Alright, so for the extra deck, starting off, we run 1 copy of Traptrix Rafflesia. Because we run Bottomless and Traptrix Traphole Nightmare, it's always great to have a Traptrix Rafflesia to send trap cards, send our Bottomless and Traptrix Traphole Nightmare from the deck to the graveyard and activate their effects there. And most people play maybe 1 trap hole card, so if your opponent tries to bait one out and the next turn tries to go for a play, he's going to be surprised when you have a second one ready for him. Okay, and next we play 1 copy of Abyss Dweller because graveyard effects are still relevant with Burning Abyss and stuff, and that's still a really popular deck. It's also pretty good against ABCs and Blue Eyes as well because they have certain cards that trigger in the graveyard that gain effects that gain them advantage. Okay, next off we run 1 copy of Bujinte Tsukuyomi. Seems like ABCs are really fond of this card now, but I'll let them know that we played it first. So Bujinte Tsukuyomi just allows us to cycle through our cards, put dead cards from our hand to the graveyard, and draw 2 new cards. Pretty good in that regard, and really good for setting up first turn. One of the XYZs that we really want to make with Cannon because it requires 2 level 4 light monsters. Next off, we run 1 copy of Fairy Cheergirl, which requires 2 fairy-type monsters to create. Her effect is just detach 1 to draw 1. It's not that bad overall. It helps us draw into our deck to hopefully get to our floodgates and get to our traps that we can protect ourselves with. Next off, we run 1 copy of Starliege Paladynamo. This is basically the better giant hand. You can't use it on your opponent's turn, but when you summon it, you can detach 2 materials from it, target a monster that your opponent controls. Its attack becomes 0 and its effects are negated permanently, even if this card leaves the field. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effects, you do get to draw a card. So he does float, similar to like Mathematician or something. Okay, next off we play 1 copy of Diamond Direwolf. I like Diamond Direwolf in this deck a lot right now because Bujinte Tsukuyomi, you can pop that. You can pop the Diamond Direwolf himself. You can pop Castel. Basically, the point of this is to get rid of back row and to get rid of floodgates. If your opponent has something like Anti-Spell Fragrance, you get to pop it if you have any level 4 Melodious monster and a cannon in your hand. You can just make Diamond Direwolf and pop it and then go off from there. So really good to have in the side deck, I believe, right now. Next off, we run 1 copy of Castel, kind of self-explanatory, put stuff back into the deck. We run 1 copy of Dark Rebellion, XYZ Dragon, because Dark Rebellion is a monster that has 2500 attack and it's fairly easy to summon with a pretty good effect as well. Helps us get over big beat sticks like Blue Eyes that we normally can't get over, and it helps us save our Utopia package right here with Utopia and Utopia Lightnings. Helps us save this for the more important floaters and things. So yeah, so that does it for the XYZs. Next off, we're going to go into the fusions. So for the fusions, we run 1 copy of Elder Entity Norden. This is just for an instant fusion target right here. And next off, we run 3 copies of Schuberta, the Melodious Maestra. Now, Schuberta here allows us to, during either player's turn, target 3 cards in either player's graveyard and banish them. really, really strong against Blue Eyes, against ABCs, just against so many different decks, and you really do want to see her as soon as possible to banish the cards in their graveyard, to prevent them from making plays, to prevent them from searching, and all that good stuff. Okay, and next off we run one copy of Bloom Diva, the Melodious Choir. Bloom Diva is just here as kind of a utility. Normally you're going to be sitting on Shiberta, but if you do happen to have enough cards to make a Bloom Diva, your Arya Bloom Diva field is going to be really powerful, and you're more likely than not going to win the game from there if you have both of them on the field. So yeah, that does it for the extra deck, and that does it for the deck profile. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found this video helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Melodious content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.